It is time to go around the National and we look at stories from the 32 teams around the league. And let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins, guys, because they made some news over the weekend with Brian Rust agreeing to a contract extension, 6 years, average annual value 5.125 against the cap. I know that the head of the Brian Rust fan club, one Michael Rupp, will be thrilled with that. Not a lot of people thought that Rust would stay in Pittsburgh. They thought maybe he had just priced himself out because he had played so well. Lotz, I'll start with you. What do you make of the Penguins being able to get this done?
Thought it was a really good signing for the Penguins, I'll be honest with you. It's a great signing for Brian Rust also, but why do I say maybe it came in just a little bit team-friendly? Because I thought he was comparable to Zach Hyman, who signed with the Edmonton Oilers last year for roughly $5.5 million. So that was the good news. The bad news for the Penguins was that Ruster hit just a little bit of a bump towards the end of the season when he went a little cold. But otherwise, he played tremendous last year for them, notwithstanding how well he played in the playoffs. And you clarify that. Yeah. Because he was dynamic in the playoffs.
And he's part of that great line with Crosby and Gensel.
Yes, he was. But his points over the last 20 games just dropped through the floor after he was averaging over a point a game prior to that. So it was a huge year for him at 30 years old. I said this about all of the UFAs on this team. Erod, Letang, Malkin, you name it. The problem for signing these guys is term.
Yeah.
And that's a long term. Yeah. But I liked the number, and I felt like they had to do it. Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be. I think this was going to be a tough signing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They'd have to get tricky and figure this out with the cap, and obviously because you got Letang and Malcolm, but they've obviously shown the importance of Brian Rust. Brian Rust also showing he loves playing with Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and why not? Because maybe a little bit of a team-friendly deal, but the 6 years, I think it's pretty fair on both sides. Yeah, Pittsburgh's able to get it done, an important signing regardless. Yeah, he's been terrific for them for a lot of years. Tailed off that you mentioned a little bit at the end there, Lots, but he's one of those players that are hard to replace. He's hard-nosed, good around the net, can score goals, and from what I hear, Sidney Crosby really likes playing.
Yeah. They know. Hey, listen,
that's all you need.
They know him. He knows them. So that's a helpful thing. What does this mean now? Do you think? Let's start with Malkin. What does it mean for Malkin? Because he's obviously fits into that forward group as well.
Well, you got Letang, you got Erod, and you got Raquel.
Okay.
I think you deal with those guys.
Okay.
And I think Malkin's the odd man out in the end.
All right.
This is a chance for which. You know, who knows?
But do you
it's
go
just
to
my opinion.
But do you go to Malkin and say, listen, do you go to Malkin and say, like, he was making, what, 9.5? Do you go to Malkin and say, listen, we can give you 3 to match up with Sid at maybe 7 per year? You're still saving $2.5 million towards other guys.
Yeah. Where's their cap situation? Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly. How do they fit all them in?
They have way more cash than you think.
Yeah.
But one guy is going to get left out.
Yeah.
One of the bigger guys. So it's either Letang or Malkin for me. I don't see him signing both those guys. Forget about Erod. Forget about Raquel. Those are luxury signings.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is an opportunity for them maybe to go out and go another direction.
Another direction, yeah.
Pittsburgh fans probably don't want to hear that. I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not telling you the favorable thing you might want to hear. That's my opinion. Yeah. I haven't talked to anybody in Pittsburgh, but I've looked at every team's cap situation. And if I were another team, I'd be trying to evaluate what do I think about getting Malkin. He did have 42 points in 41 games this year. But his 5-on-5 play, remember this, pretty weak.
Yeah.
Pretty weak in the playoffs.
All right, let me ask you this now, because Letang had a great year. We know Letang is a vital player for this team because you don't replace defensemen. It's like when Dano left the Devils. Couldn't be replaced. They had to put his number in the rafters.
Yeah,
it is.
He had a little more offense.
Just a tad. But listen, they let him go. They had they kind of put the lasso on you.
There you go.
But let me ask you about. Let's suppose Letang Lotz comes to you and says, "Listen, Brian, you know I love this Pittsburgh. I love to stay here, but I think 5 years." Now, what do you say?
You probably say no. To be honest with you, at 5 years. Here's the problem with Malkin and Letang. They're both over 35 now.
Yeah.
So if you sign these players for 5 years, even if they retire after 3,
you're stuck with the cap hit.
You're going to continue to pay the cap hit.
Yeah.
Now players are in much better shape. They can play much longer. You know, I have talked to Berkey about this stuff in the past, but not recently. So there's nothing in any conversations. And you know, Berkey is really an aficionado in terms of looking at a player's career and judging what they have left in the tank. They did, because I did have a conversation after, you know what signing? because I called him after Jeff Carter.
Yeah.
Because that surprised me that they went out and signed Jeff Carter for 2 more years during the season. And, Berkey was great. He just said, look, Lotz, you watch him. He's a great skater.
Yeah.
And guess what? He was incredibly effective.
A good player within that group.
In the playoffs, too, this year. So that did surprise me. But that is the challenge. Over 35. You cannot give Malkin 5 years and have that on your cap.
I wouldn't worry about Malkin for 5, but Letang, team like the Devils would like, I don't know if they everybody's going to like Chris Letang, right? And somebody might give him. I thought it was similar with Pavelski a couple of years ago. There was the San Jose one didn't want to go more than 3. He went to market, and all of a sudden teams were offering 4, 5 years. He ended up with a 4-year deal, I believe, in Dallas. So
3 years at $21 million.
Yeah,
San Jose wanted to go maybe 2.
Yeah, that's it. That was it.
Exactly
but it was
correct.
a battle over term.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And Joe, of course, just re-signed for another year.
Yeah.
So, apparently he was right. He should have got 4 years.
Yeah.
And Lotz, I know you, being a former general manager, and obviously there wasn't a salary cap back then, but you look at it and understand exactly where these teams are at. But you have to be so creative, and the maneuverability is so slim at times, right?
These are massive decisions. It's really easy. We're talking about
because it can affect you 5 years down the road.
Right.
If you say, well,
you can't.
They meant so much to our team, and they have Letang and Malkin.
Yeah. This is
that we're going to reward them, loyalty, all those kinds of things. Harder to do now, right?
Yes. This is what Berkey and Hexie are taxed with. Is how do we figure this out? You ask Pittsburgh Penguin fans, and of course they want Chris Letang. They want him as long as they can get him. But there's massive ramifications for the team. You've got new ownership in there. Now they're looking over your shoulder. It's incumbent on them to make great decisions, and so far they've done that. And I am a buyer of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they have a longer window here. But I do think at the end of the day, the one player that's vulnerable is probably Malkin, in my opinion, not theirs.
I would tend to agree with it. We'll see how it plays out. Let's get you to weigh in here on the Mark Giordano extension, because he came over from Seattle. He signed a very team-friendly deal here. I mean, he'll be 39 in October when the season starts. 2 years, $800K per for a team that, that's what they can afford. He fit in nicely in Toronto. I think that's a pretty good signing because it's value. It's not expensive.
Regardless of his age, he's still very effective, Mark Giordano, and that is a real team-friendly deal. So obviously, at the end of his career, he's made his money, Lotz. He wants to win. He believes he can do it in Toronto.
Sure.
He's from the area, and obviously he's liked the situation, likes what he sees in Toronto, and likes the where they're at, where he's at in his career. And it's about winning, and he thinks he can win with Toronto. I love that, and I respect Mark Giordano for that, taking a 2-year extension for basically the minimum.
Right. But here's what's going on here, right? So you can't really, it's a ridiculously low salary for a guy that has the experience and history that Mark Giordano does. But what did we just see happen with Corey Perry?
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Lightning wanted him. 37 years old. He just turned 37 on May 16th.
That's right.
Okay?
And they gave him 2 years.
Exactly my point. This is the new, it's not cheating.
The new norm.
It's not circumventing the cap.
Yeah.
But somebody's going to get stung on one of these deals where you don't want the guy for 2 years. Well, guess what? Tampa probably feel great about their deal right now. Corey Perry had 19 goals in the regular season. He's got 5 in the playoffs. He's a clutch player, and he's got that it factor. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are trying to steal a page from them and do the same thing. And I commend Toronto. This is a great signing for them. Mark Giordano made them look like they had a real deal. Right? When Muzzin came back and Giordano was there, and they got T.J. Brody and they got Morgan Riley, all of a sudden you're going, it's a pretty good top 4. Gio played better than I thought he would.
No, he really did. And the leadership is invaluable. And that means something.
And he helped the young D, Dano, and you could speak to that because, you played for a long time. Those young guys, they need somebody to lean on sometimes coming to the bench after tough shifts, right?
When I was getting long in the tooth and your role diminishes as a player, and I played till 39 years old and was in and out of the lineup even during the playoffs.
I didn't know you just retired.
My final year, but as a player, too, take pride in helping the young guys and being part of that. And I think Giordano loves that. Loves to be
back home
leader.
too.
Yep, Toronto
back
guy.
home from
Back
Toronto.
home.
But
Undrafted.
What you said, lots. He was still pretty valuable on the back end.
It's a great signing by Toronto. It really is. But this is the game now. You know, if you want to be a manager in the league, you better be current on every trick that there is out there. And this is Toronto doing a nice job, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to be fair, Lutz, when you were a GM, the cap was literally lower, so it was really trickier, right?
Yeah,
it was like,
did I say
there
was
like
no years ago?
Yeah, well, 105.
Was there a cap when you were general manager?
There was a cap.
Oh, I apologize. I thought it was before the cap.
I am 39.
I was aging you.
You know what?
Back when
he had some very tough negotiations with Gordie Howe. We could talk about that at another time.
Because I said you didn't have a salary cap, but in fact you did. So
The challenge now for the cap, just to wrap a bow on this, is the fact that the pandemic has slowed revenue down.
That's it.
And people that had done these marvelous projections out for years, all of a sudden the models didn't look so good.
Yeah.
You know, because the cap had to slow down because the revenues weren't there. It's not something you could plan for. It's been problematic and will continue to be problematic for a couple more years.
Yeah, so Brian Rust stays in Pittsburgh and Mark Giordano staying in Toronto. I think two good signings by both of those teams.